It is a review that is over 400 days and 13 months in the making. Guys, we come to it at last, the final Wheel of Time review on the channel. Let's talk some Memory of Light. There were many good years, good decades, good centuries. We believed we were living in paradise. Perhaps that was our downfall. We wanted our lives to be perfect, so we ignored imperfections. But being in charge isn't always about telling people what to do. Sometimes it's about knowing when to step out of the way for people who know what they're doing. Here is your flaw and why you failed. It was not about me. It has never been about me. It was about a woman cast from her throne and made a puppet. It was about a man who found relevance in a world that others would have let pass them by. It was about a woman with a secret, a hope for the future. It was about a man whose family was taken from him, but who stood tall in sorrow and protected those that he could. It was about a woman who refused to believe that she could not help, could not heal those who had been harmed. It was about a hero who insisted with every breath that he was anything but a hero. It was about them all. Hey, what's up, wheelies and dark friends? Mike back for one more Wheel of Time review. And yes, we have come to the end of the journey of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. Guys, I'm so glad that you have stuck with me through this whole trip. My first journey to Randland is now complete. And guys, there has been a little bit of a recovery period. I know a lot of people were, the second that I posted that I had just finished the book, a lot of people were like, so when's the review coming? And I'm sure people know, you probably recall when you first got here, that there was a little bit of a recovery period. And I try to kind of get this through on some of my weekly updates and that quick little video I did, the little 5-minute video about what was taking so long. I think that you know that there was a sort of a recovery period there because it was just emotionally draining. And I mean, the last 25 pages of this book, tears in my eyes, because not necessarily because of the emotions of the story, but just, you know, the emotion of the journey as a whole. And you just started really thinking, wow, I only have 20 pages left in these 14 tomes that I've been working on for the last year of my life. So, yeah, it was very, very emotional. And I think there was a good recovery period. It wasn't until about Wednesday or Thursday where I felt like I was over it. You know, I finished it at about 2:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning. And yeah, it's a very rough night of sleep. Every time I woke up, I was like, oh, what about this and this and this and this? You know, and it wasn't necessarily that I had unanswered questions as much as I think it was just like, you got to learn to let go, you know, kind of like what Rand learns in this book. You got to learn to let go. And I kind of felt like that was the message to myself. You got to kind of learn to let go and accept that you're here now. But it's not going to be a sad review. It's going to be a very happy review. It's going to be a celebration of sorts. If you guys don't know, these are all spoilers. So if you have not finished The Wheel of Time and read New Spring, turn back now and come back later, because I'm going to talk about potentially stuff that happened in any of these books, and I'm not going to restrict anything in that portion here. So usually with these reviews, if you've been with me this whole time, you know that I usually will separate them by character and then kind of go through everything that I liked and didn't like that way. Well, I'm not going to be able to do that this time because this book is 95% action. I don't think that there's anything slow in this book. This is definitely the most fast-paced Wheel of Time book, and it skips between. Sanderson's not like Jordan. He wouldn't do one chapter for a character. He would do a chapter and he would just switch whenever he felt like it. Chapters are really just there to be there, I felt like. And so what I've kind of tried to do here is just kind of break it down by like a little story arc in some sort of order that it happened in the book. And I think I'll go through the story arcs and kind of the characters involved in those. You do know, guys, I'm not going to be able to cover everything. This is just too vast of a book. and I don't want this review to be 3 hours, but I do plan to break it into 2 videos. I'm going to do everything prior to the last battle for part 1 here, and then part 2 will be coming right after this with everything from the last battle to the epilogue, and saying peace, and thank you for everything. So long, and thanks for all the fish, right? So let's go ahead and kick it off, guys, and we're going to start in Camelin. This is where the prologue kind of kicks off with Talmanis, and Demandred is sending his forces to capture the dragons, Eludra's dragons, and Elaine's people have been making. They have the resources, a deal that they struck in the last book, whatever. But Talmanis and the Red Hand, they fight his forces back, but they're outnumbered really badly, and they lose Camelin. And Talmanis actually takes. He kills a Myrddraal, but he actually takes a lethal wound. And I think I can't remember who it is. One of the kin are unable to heal it. And you think, okay, he's on borrowed time, So like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I said there needed to be some death in this book. It looks like they're starting off. It doesn't quite turn out that way, but it's okay. It was a good way to get your attention right off the bat. Also, getting your attention right off the bat, we get our answer that we've had for a long time. I've said numerous times it's not my theory because I know that people read this series years before me, but the Tamandred theory was not one that was unpopular. I think a lot of people had that theory, myself included. And right off the bat, we find out that Mazrim Taim is not Demandred because right away we get both of them in the same room. Like, oh, well, okay. And I've had some people say they feel like Robert Jordan might have just done this to subvert expectations because so many people expected it at this point. And I can see that. I can see that or whatever. Does it change a lot? Not. I mean, it kind of could have with the whole last battle part, but it's okay. It's fine. But you find out that he is being named Mahail. I was saying it as Mahail. And he's going to be a new Forsaken. So this is like, okay, this is kind of a big deal. He isn't even one of the Forsaken. I thought for sure he would be, but whatever. He's just a dark dude. Yeah, that's a really cool way to kick this off with the Forsaken. Because guys, I've had my problems with the Forsaken this whole series. But I'll say that Demandred and Taim are serious business in this book. Everyone else I still have some problems with, but my complaints about the Forsaken, while they're still there, they're not as, Three Stooges like in this book or whatever, but I think that's just because Demandred wrecks shop this whole book. In fact, I think he is a bigger conflict than the whole conflict with the Dark Lord is. The Dark One is the Dark Lord. Too much Lord of the Rings. So there's my hot take right off the bat. Let's move over to the Black Tower now. And this is where you get the whole stuff with Andral and Pavara. I'm going to say this right off the bat so people don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I think these characters are fine. And I'm fine with Brandon Sanderson having some characters that he wanted to create. I understand he wanted something of his own in here. I think he deserved that, for sure. I don't know about Pavara, but I know that he created Andral, apparently. And I don't think that they're bad characters at all. My problem with this is that I've got 50-ish main characters that I'm following. I don't need 2 more. And I feel like Andral and Pavara get so much time in this book that I feel like was robbed from a character like Logain that I would like to have seen a lot more of. So there's how I feel about this. It's good. It's just not where I would have liked to have seen the time be spent. So there's a early criticism, but they discovered that Mazrim Taim is starting to forcibly turn some Ashaman into to the dark or whatever, and they turn out. It's funny. I think, unless I read it wrong, I believe she tries to bond herself to Andral, and Andral then tries to bond, and they end up bonding each other. So this whole book, they're kind of communicating back and forth, and it's kind of a fun little back and forth. It turns into like a buddy cop movie, and I had a good time with that. But that criticism there, that's all I'm going to mention. That's the criticism. Is I just didn't need 2 new characters really this much at this late in the story, this big with this many characters. So moving on now, Logain has been captured and they are torturing the hell out of him, trying to get him to turn. But they decide, Andral and Pavara decide they're going to go rescue him. He's weak and he can't channel by the time they get to him. They encounter Taim. And he weaves Balefire at Andral, but Andral is like freaking Doctor Strange here, where he's just like a master with the gates at this point. And he weaves the gateway, he absorbs the Balefire, and Taim then like pulls the ceiling down on them. And you're like, well, okay, I guess they're dead. Again, here we are with the early stuff of me thinking that everybody's dying, right? So let's move to the field of Marilor, which is where 90% of this book takes place. And we've got like our big meeting, or our war meeting before we get into this, trying to squash everything, and let's focus on the last battle, something I've been crying about for numerous reviews now. But Rand, he's hosting a meeting for the Dragon's Peace, as he calls it. And this is which would fix the borders and outlaw war. This is his like stipulation here. It's the part about breaking the Dark One's seals that kind of make it all fall apart. And yes, I'm not going to beat around the bush about my feelings about Egwene up to this point. I think it's kind of gotten me confused to where I hate Egwene. I just haven't cared for the story arc for her lately or whatever. And I think Rand here calling her an entitled brat just was my inner voice speaking, and it needed to happen. But it's all about the fall apart. And then my gal, Moraine, shows up, and she gives these fools a reality check by quoting scripture at them, the prophecies of the dragon or whatnot. And it's just a fantastic reunion scene. It was everything that I wanted in the last book with Moraine, because her reunion with Rand is beautiful. The one with Nynaeve, where Nynaeve like hugs her and it like actually like surprised her, and she's like, "Don't tell Lan." Loved it. This whole chapter was beautiful, and it was the reunion that I wanted. The only thing that I did not get here that I wanted, because Matt's off doing something else right now, is I wanted my three Ta'Veren to be together before this battle. That was the one thing I felt like I didn't really get in this book. And I wish that he found a way to get Matt here just for this one scene. Then he could have went to Ibudar. But anyway, that said, great reunion scene or whatnot. And there's also a deal in here with the Aiel and the Shan-Shan and all that stuff. But there's so much stuff I want to talk about, guys. So some things are going to have to fall by the wayside. So you're not going to hear tell about that. That means you're not going to hear a lot about Avienda. I'm sorry if you're a big Avienda hunk. I had to make some tough cuts here. Elaine is named the commander-in-chief for the last battle. And I'm like, what? But again, all my problems I've had with Elaine up to this point, I do want to say right off the bat, I had no problems with any character in this book. None of them. I know a lot of people like to bitch about Gawain a lot. A lot of people think, Mike hates Elaine, hates Egwene, so he's going to hate this. I thought everyone in this book was perfectly written. Perfectly. So there. All my previous problems, they are not present in this book at all. So even Elaine is pretty good in this book. She really is. And I feel like if this is she is a ride moment, I don't say I like her. No, I wouldn't like her. And I wouldn't be crying into, the pillow if she had died or something. But I'm just saying that everyone really has their arrived moment in here. And I think it was someone in the Discord I was talking with where I said how seeing the Ta'Veren and Elaine and Egwene, all these, and seeing them just be like grown-ups at this point, and you maybe just, I'm really nostalgic this whole book, just thinking back to where these characters started in Eye of the World, because that's going to happen a lot in this. You're going to be thinking about where this all began, coming full circle, if you will. And what I told that person was like, I feel like I'm a parent watching their kids graduate college. That's how I felt with some of this. So seeing all these characters fully grown up, fully embracing their roles, no more, I don't want to be a leader or any of that stuff. It's good. It's good. Everyone, that's one thing I think they've really set up perfectly heading into this book, is that all that stuff is taken care of now, and we can focus on the task at hand, which is Tarmangaiden. All right, let's talk about, before we get to what Perrin and all that stuff is right before the big fight starts, I want to talk about Ibudar, and that's Matt and Tuon's reunion. He goes to see her in Ibudar, and he actually saves her from a gray man. And so she decides, as a thank you, she starts, giving him a little pillow talk, and she says, like, I kind of like your missing eye because before you were too pretty. So I've always, while I haven't been wild about their relationship, I don't think it's that I haven't been wild about the relationship. It's just, I guess you'd say I'm not as crazy about Tuon as most of the fandom seems to be. She's fine. I'm glad there wasn't just a, hey, you're available and I'm available and we're a couple now. I feel like it was a little more developed than that. But I have always kind of liked their banter. They've had good banter back and forth. And, sometimes Tuon lets her freak flag fly, and so does Matt. So I actually think they're kind of really good together or whatnot. But Rand visits them, and while they're, still naked, and they start comparing body counts, and this is what I wanted. Just why couldn't Perrin be here, right? Because Matt and Rand, they start, like I said, compare body counts. It's like saying, hey, well, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done that, and you haven't done this or whatever. And Matt eventually wins by saying, oh yeah, well, I saved Moraine, so chew on that, big fella. Good line. Good times. I had a great time with this reunion. God, I wish the three of them, hell, even if it was just Rand and Matt just being more together in this book, I think I would have had a hell of a lot more fun than I did, because Rand spends most of the book in limbo. We'll talk about it. But Matt is fitted with a Shan-Chan uniform to lead the Shan-Chan army in Tarmageddon, and he says he's fine with that, but he's keeping the hat no matter how silly Seleucia says it makes him look. And I'm glad, because Matt without the hat, that's like peanut butter without jelly, right? So let's move to Teleron-Riode here, and this is what we're going to be on Perrin and Lanfear and Slayer again. Perrin realizes that Slayer is so strong in the Wolf Dreams because he enters Teleron-Riode in the flesh and starts experimenting or kind of testing the waters and saying, how do I do this? How do I do this? And they're like, yo, don't do that. It's bad. But he passes command of the Two Rivers folk to Tam. Tam has a very big part in this book, and it's just showing him being a badass. It's showing, I think there's one part where he's kicking so much ass, and Lan sees him, and Lan's like, I'd always wondered if the person that Rand had gotten that hair-marked blade from, if he actually deserved it, if he earned it, and I can see very much so now that he did. And I'll get into the arrows part later, but he has some of the most fist-pumping parts in this book. I don't want to shortchange Tam here. I don't really have like a section to talk about him, so I'm just going to kind of talk about him here real quick, where he's the one who's really teaching Rand how to sword fight with one hand. Really good stuff, and telling him to let go, teaching him to let go. I think that's the moral of this book for Rand, is learning to let go. Those people that died for you because everyone has to make sacrifices, not just you. It's a great message, and there is one thing Tam has done this story is anytime he is with Rand, your allergies start to flare up, because dude is dad of the century. Everybody wants Tam as a dad. All right, what else? Bornhold, he does tell Perrin the truth that it was Ordith or Padden Fane who actually killed his family, and I thought that was going to come into play later, but it doesn't. So okay, whatever. Gaul goes with Perrin, basically says like, you have to kill me to keep me from coming with you, and Perrin goes to stop Slayer from interceding with Rand in the last battle. I told you guys in Shadow Rising and in Towers of Midnight, I'm not crazy about the Slayer character. I really feel like it's just giving Perrin something to do. I mean, it's better than him just sitting around moping, I guess. It's just, I don't know. I haven't been nuts about the Wolf Dream stuff or the Slayer stuff like at all. And, a story this big, not everything's going to hit home for you. It's good. It's written well here. It's a storyline that I wasn't crazy about in the last book. And seeing it's just going to continue here until Perrin decides he's going to lay in a bed for the entire last battle. Bad decision. But while they are in Teleron-Riode, they search for the Dream Spike, and Lanfear appears and helps them find it. And I'm thinking back to I think it's the epilogue of the last book, where she's telling Rand she wants to be free and all that, and I'm just like, I don't trust her, and I don't think that anyone should be trusting her, but it seems like Perrin's kind of trusting her here, because, it just goes all the way back to Great Hunt. Haha, pretty girl. But, that's the thing, though, is she's not pretty anymore. I'm just using their real names because, guys, there's so many Forsaken, and they die, and they come back with a new name or a new face. I'm just calling them the original names because it's just gotten too confusing, and I'm going to get names wrong, and people are going to give me a hard time about that in the comments. So I'm just going to call her Lanfear here, but she's not beautiful anymore. So that's something to think about there. But they discover that at first though they save Andral and Pavara, from Tame there. So that's one thing there. But they discover that Grendel. I want to say Grendel, like Beowulf and Grendel so much. But they find out that she has been invading other people's dreams in Teleron-Riode, but she disappears before they can grab hold of her. And then Perrin fights Slayer, and to be truthful, he gets his ass handed to him, and he has to sit out the last battle because he needs real sleep. I suppose this was used for like dramatic effect. I just felt like you're not going to have one of the Ta'veren in the thick of the last battle. What a weird decision. I'd like to know if that's Sanderson or Jordan. I haven't actually watched all the posts. What I said was when I finished, it's like, oh great, I get to watch my friend Nate Bliss or Daniel Green's video, spoiler stuff now. and I was so emotionally drained that didn't happen. So I haven't actually watched any of it yet. So I'm sure some of the stuff has been confirmed by now, but it isn't here. It is not here, and I am kind of bummed out about it, truthfully. All right, so let's move to the what I'm calling the deep breath before the plunge. This is all the final setup before we get to the last battle here. Now, there are 4 campaigns, and they're each going to be led by the great captain. Gareth Brent is in Kandor, Agilmar is in Shinar, Ituralda is in Shale Ghul, and Davrin Bashir is in Camelin, I think, with Elaine. So, meanwhile, Rand is going to go fight the Dark One at the Pit of Doom. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting the matchups that I wanted here. But the captains, they keep making these strategic mistakes. It's very unlike them. And they finally decide that either they are dark friends. I think at one point Matt's even like, huh, Gareth Brent is a dark friend. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. Or was it Bashir? I always get Brent and Bashir mixed up when people are referencing them. But it's not like it's impossible to get characters confused in this. Whatever. But I can't remember which one it was that Matt said that. But it was funny how he just says it like all casually. But it turns out that Grendel, what she was doing in Tel'aran'rhiod, she has been entering their dreams and using compulsion on them. So they're making mistakes enough to where it doesn't seem like they're just flat out evil, but they're just having like a bad day. And obviously this is not the day to have a bad day. So thus it is up to Matt to step up and lead the last battle, since he's immune to compulsion because of the Foxhead medallion. And he's got all that knowledge in his brain. And this is hard for some characters to accept. I get that. Like Gawain's like, what? And even, of course, Elaine's like, I don't know about this. But, I think it goes a long way in this book where people just realize, you know what? Maybe we're being dicks. Maybe Matt is actually like us. He has grown a lot since Two Rivers. And I think the really good arc here is everyone starts to trust Matt. Even though it seems like sometimes some of the strategies, they're like, what is he doing? It's actually really kind of amusing how they're like, I don't understand what he's doing. I don't understand what he's doing. And the whole time, whenever you hear from Damandra, he's like, oh my God, this guy is so brilliant. This has to be someone from like the Age of Legends. This has to be Lews Therin in disguise because he's so brilliant. So it's kind of interesting how, your enemies will look at you with more respect sometimes than your friends will. But it's a good character arc, I think, from Matt. Rand does go to... Oh, I do want to mention that Nynaeve does heal Tel'Manis, by the way. So while I was like, okay, that seems weird that they're going to, save Tel'Manis, it just seemed like a character that probably could die and it wouldn't have, broken the back or anything like that. But again, just shows that Nynaeve is the bestest. She's the strongest, man. She's nothing this girl can't do. That's why I don't understand why she just stands in a place for the whole book. I'm bearing the lead here, but there's these things called the Sharans. The Sharans show up, and someone told me, oh no, this isn't out of nowhere. They're actually mentioned as early as Eye of the World. And I'm like, okay. So the Sharans show up, and they're being led by Damandred. And I know that Damandred had said before that he had been working on assuming his army or building his army or whatnot. Again, I assumed it was Mazrim Taim saying that, and it was talking about the Ashaman he had been building. And I think that's supposed to be what you're supposed to think. But I'm not going to talk too much about the Sharn because I don't know nothing about them. I just feel like they came out of nowhere. It just seems like in a movie where some random army shows up to save the day or just make the battle for the good guys even harder. So if you guys are big Sharn fans, sorry, I didn't even get it except for just the numbers. They needed the numbers or whatnot. But Rand does go to the Pit of Doom with Nynaeve and Moraine with Kalandor in tow. And Moradin is there, and they begin to duel. And I'm expecting this really badass sword fight, and they fall into a hole in the pattern. And then they stay there pretty much for the rest of the book. And Rand actually makes contact with the Dark One himself in there. And Matt arrives at the Field of Marilor, and he regroups the forces, and Tarmangaden is ready to begin. And that is where it leaves us before the last battle, which I'm going to talk about in video number 2. I just want to say before I get there, my favorite parts about this first half of the book, I kind of already briefly mentioned, is everyone was ready to go. There was no, okay, we got to do this first and that. No, everybody is ready to go. They squashed the whole Dragon's Peace thing, all that. It's fine. I was fine. I felt like it was brief. It was done quickly. And it had everything done where there was no lingering threads. Because last thing I wanted was to have the last battle happening and that's to break away from that action to talk about some side quest that someone's doing that I don't really care about. They kind of do that with Fail and the Horn, and I'll talk about it. Obviously, that's important, but I do feel like it's a side quest. But there's never a moment where I feel like the action is taken away from focusing on the last battle. And that's where we are as we go forward. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope you'll join me for part 2. It's going to be the longer of these two because the last battle is the longer of this book. It's, what, 200 pages? I think. And the weird thing about the last battle is when I was reading it, when I was reading it late at night, I was reading it on my Kindle, not out of the hardcover. And I turned the page of the last battle, and it said like 8 hours and 33 minutes remaining in this chapter. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? So yeah, it was over 200 pages, I think, in the hardcover or whatnot. And I actually didn't finish it in one sitting like I had hoped to. Everyone told me, oh yeah, it's longer than the first Harry Potter book is always the comparison I see or whatnot. But it was very, very long, but it was very, very worth it. And we're going to talk about it in that video. So hop on over there, guys. Join me there, and I'll see you then. If you want to talk about anything before the last battle, drop in the comments, and I'll talk to you there.